After Tissot brought out the PRX recently, it was definitely a breakthrough success. Debuted and it seems like everybody loved it. So the obvious next step was to expand the PRX line. They've brought out the Chrono. Is it going to be a success? Because it's a hell of a beast. So big thanks to Neil. He's an absolute gent for sending this up, and to get hands-on experience with one of these brand new watches just released is very much appreciated. So thank you, mate. And yeah, one of the first things you've got to do when buying a watch, it must be top of the list. You've got to, as basic as it is, you've got to like the way it looks. And that's one of the things that is really attractive about this watch, the design. I think for me, it is just a really cool looking watch. It hits the right marks. Now, you could argue that it does look like some more prestigious brands and maybe they've taken a few design cues, fair enough. But for the money, you're getting a really well designed, really good looking watch. Another of the things that I like about this watch is the way that it reflects light and plays with the light. It's a really good feature, and I'm sure they've designed it that way and it's not just by look. And it definitely looks a more expensive watch. So what's the money? I think it's around 1,500 quid, but you're definitely getting a watch that looks a hell of a lot more money. One of the other things I really like about this is the bracelet. Now, the bracelet is well designed. It's integrated, so it's not going to be for everybody. It's got a massive taper on it, which is good. But the actual bracelet itself is really thin that way, so it reflects light well. It's all brushed, and it really balances the watch out. Now, there's a lot of top heaviness around this watch, but the bracelet is thin, refined, good looking. The only downside is, I would say, that there is no micro adjustment. Now, probably the biggest standout feature of this watch, and there's a lot of good features that make it an absolute possible winner, I'll say at this stage, is the dial. Now, it's a gorgeous, rich blue, and it's like a polished metal, almost wood grain effect for want of a better description. It really stands out in certain lights and it makes it more luxurious, more attractive. So yeah, they've really brushed the metal in a really nice way, and as I say, it's almost like a wood grain in certain light. Other lights it can be quite subdued and dark, but yeah, I think the dial is an absolute winner. And another thing that is an absolute winner for me is Subdials. Now, I've always had a real soft spot for white dials, white subdials on a black dial with white subdials. I think that's the winner for me. That's the best combo, and these don't disappoint. They're really attractive. They've got nice little details on the subdial as well. So for me, along with the wood grain blue dial and the white subdials and the bracelet and the reflection and the basic design of this watch, there's a lot of great things to like. Now, a couple of things that maybe I don't like or I do like, I just thought they're worth mentioning, is the change of date. Now, you have to use a pen or the sharp object of some sort just to press the button on the date, and that's the only way you can change it. So if you've set the time and you're just wearing the watch, that's fine. But yeah, if you've stopped wearing it for a few days and you've got to change the date, you have got to use some sort of tool to get it going again. Not the end of the world, but yeah, it might annoy some people. And another, is it a big one? It's not as big a feature for me as it used to be, but there's no micro adjustment. Now, this is a big 42mm watch. It's a thick watch. It's a chunky monkey at 100%. So with no micro adjustment, I think some people are going to have a bit of a nightmare trying to get the right fit. Now, obviously, there's a lot of different measurements on this watch, as there is every watch you ever measure, but some of the measurements would suggest that this watch is going to wear large, and other measurements would suggest it's going to wear smaller. So let me try and explain that in a bit more detail. The case itself is officially a 42mm case, standard, yes, but then the bezel, around the bezel section, that is only 39mm, so that is definitely going to make the watch look smaller on your wrist. The crystal is only 33mm on top of that, so again, there's a real shrinkage of that area which will make the watch wear smaller. Now, the case length in total is 41.5mm, but the case in full is 46.5mm. So again, they're decent measurements, but then with the lugs sticking out, you're over that 50mm mark and you're looking at 53mm. So that's going on to the larger side of the watch. Now, the big one, which is going to be a big one for most people, is this watch is 15mm thick. Now, that is really thick. Not unbearable, but it's on the top side 100%. Now, one of the big ones on this watch, 28mm where the lugs start. Now, because it's integrated, it's not as much of a big deal. They're not 28mm lugs, but they do start out there. The full measurement is 28mm. The good thing is it tapers down rapidly down to 80mm. So again, if you said it starts at 28mm, you'd think, Christ, that is a lot. But the taper down to 18 is going to make sure it wears and looks fantastic on the wrist. Now, you get a lot of good things in this watch, and it's £1,500, so it's practically double the money of the original PRX. Do you want to spend twice as much for the same vibe? I know you get a chrono, but it's whether you want to spend that extra money on basically a Tissot. It must be near Tissot's most expensive watch, I'm guessing, at this stage. You get 100-meter water resistance here, which is really good. 60-hour power, which is really good. Anti-reflective and sapphire crystal is a given in most watches nowadays, to be honest. One thing to note is it is not a screw-down crown. Not the end of the world, but a lot of people, it freaks them out when they do want a screw-down crown for that security, even though you're getting the 100 meters water resistance. Super Luminova, which is good. It's not lavished in Super Luminova, but it is still there. Quick release bracelet, which is good, but you're only going to be able to use other Tissot bracelets because, I say, it's got that integrated vibe. And it's got the Valjoux F05H31. It weighs 183 grams, and you can feel every ounce of that 183 grams, I feel. It is going to be a heavy watch, a top-heavy watch, but unbearable, maybe not. So things I don't like on this watch are, well, if you can call it that, the lugs, and you could balance that into the way the case is designed as well. Now, it seems to be quite a large area where the lugs are, which make the watch oversized from the measurements that would suggest. And I feel if they just tapered those sections in a little bit, and instead of starting that bracelet at 28, maybe 24, 25, I think it might be a little bit more suitable for wear. And I did think this on the original PRX, actually, the same thing, that it just seems like a lot of dead space, not doing much there. And if they tapered that in a little bit, for me personally, I would prefer to see that. Not the end of the world, but that is definitely something that played on my mind when I owned the PRX originally. Another one, which is, I don't know if it's that I don't like it, it's just not the norm, and it's the date window, and it's the date window at 4 o'clock. Now, granted, there's a lot of subdials on here that are blocking the place where you would traditionally put a date, but for most watch nerds, watch addicts, symmetry is a massive thing. So to try and fit that in anywhere else, you can't really put it anywhere apart from 4 or 7, I would suggest. So it's one of those things, it's not the end of the world, but for me, I prefer it to be ideally at 6 or at 3. But yeah, 4 is my last of the choices for my date window. I don't hate it, but yeah, it's more on the dislike than like, to be honest. And ultimately, things that I would not be able to get on board with fully, unless I had a lot of experience of wearing this watch day in, day out for weeks on end, is the weight, the top heaviness, and the thickness and the size. All those things combined mean that I'm not sure this watch is going to be an absolute winner that the PRX is. The PRX originally is thin, a bit more refined. Now, yeah, it's probably a better looking watch is the Chrono, but I think with no micro adjustment, people are going to struggle to actually get a good fit. And once you get it in your head that a watch is top heavy or too thick, it don't automatically become a big winner. Now, Neil, the guy who lent me this watch in, he says he's a big fella. He says he can handle the bigger size, but he also rocks a 39mm Explorer. So to combine them two, it's going to be a massive change from going from one to the other. So I'll be really interested to see how he pans out with this watch. Overall, is this watch a winner? Yes, I think it is, but if it was my money and my choice, I think I'd go for the original PRX. I just think it's going to be a little bit more easy to wear on a daily basis, but the Chrono is 100% a better looking watch. Are you going to buy it? Are you going to drop £1,500 on this watch, a Chrono from Tissot? I'd love to know your thoughts. I think everyone knows it's going to be a really good looking watch, but the reality of wearing it day in, day out could be a different matter. Right guys, let me know what you think, and I'll see you in the next one.